So in this interview, I brainstormed with the person I'm interviewing who has a lot of experience with psychiatry and psychology, a degree in psychology and another degree as well. The book I'm using is The Complete Master's Kick by Master He Il Cho. I encourage you all to buy the book. I'm not ruining the best parts of the book. I'm not even touching on the illustrations of how to kick, which is the main purpose of the book. Some background about the master. This book is copyrighted in '88, I believe. Master He Il Cho, 8th degree black belt and president of AIMAA, chief instructor of the 10,000 member TAGB and AITA Association. For almost 40 years, one of the most influential voices in the martial arts has belonged to Master He Il Cho. In addition to being an 8th degree belt in Taekwondo, author of 11 books, and creator of the most extensive video training program in the world, over 30 tapes. That has probably changed by now. Master Cho is recognized as one of the most innovative martial artists alive. An inductee into the Hall of Fame, Master Cho continues to train and refine the martial arts, passing his knowledge on to students in over 20 countries. It's interesting how I go much more into depth with my philosophy than he does with his. And let me just read you this one part before we get into the interview. And then without further ado, we will begin. Okay, so he has a section in here about timing. We'll be reading about mind and body, fighting, and the conclusion. Timing. A fighter whose timing is off just 1/2 second can end up on the wrong side of a punch or kick. Timing is very important in martial arts training or any field of endeavor. The philosophy of timing deals with organizing your life in such a manner that it is always working in your favor. Being there at the right time and at the right place with the right execution will make you a winner most of the time. Life is full of examples of good and bad timing. Sometimes through no fault of your own, you may be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Say, for instance, you're involved in an accident. But there are times when better timing could produce a happy ending. If you have a big business meeting and you're a half hour late or you miss your flight, it could cost you your livelihood. You have to train your mind to use good timing, and you can use that in your martial arts endeavors. Adjusting your timing is not nearly as difficult as it appears. You just have to constantly be thinking about what you're doing. If you go to church and merely listen, you're not understanding what is being said. If you concentrate on the preacher's words and try to live your life accordingly, then you're letting timing work for your. That's what it is written. You should you should also think about developing that skill. And that brings us back to martial arts. Timing is one of the martial artist's greatest allies. I know I sometimes have trouble with my timing, but I know that, and I continually work towards improving that deficiency. The first time you try, you may fail. If you continue to work, you'll find you get better. That's like punching 10 times. If it doesn't work, try 20 times. If that doesn't work, try it 2,000 times. It's the same thing in life. Some people actually reach their goals and others fall by the wayside. The people who have actually made it have worked on improving their timing. When you have a problem with timing, you must work to eliminate it. So when you look at what he's saying, he's referencing transferable skills without using that phrase. I haven't read this whole book. I just started reading it today, and I decided to interview an educated woman about it. Timing is one of the transferable skills that sparring shows. He mentions concentration as well, and flexibility. I myself do not stress flexibility, but I do stretch every day to maintain my technique. So yes, it is a part of it. And yes, sparring can show that transferable skill as well. Now, without further ado, so you see that there's an example of his student, or whoever that guy he's demonstrating with, having the stomach protector on, the Taekwondo one, and there's another one where he seems to be wearing perhaps karate or Taekwondo feet protectors on, sparring gear. The first challenger didn't wear the headgear or the stomach gear, and he wore shoes on while I had dress socks on. It was very slippery. At one point I slipped, you know, as I attempt to do a spinning technique. I decided not to do it, and then I slipped because the grass was kind of moist. I had dress socks on with the feet protectors. He had shoes under the feet protectors. I was wearing full gear. He was not wearing the stomach protector or the headgear. Arguably giving him an advantage, but not really. When you look at boxing, you look at UFC fighting, you know, protective gear is common. The difference is that sparring shows transferable skills, while sports fighting is designed to win in a sports fighting competition. So sparring, traditional sparring, is the closest thing to real fighting, real combat, as far as the skills required. And people do take a good one, as you saw in the second match. He took a good one to the face. Not really, I mean, not really, you know, not a really hard blow to the face, but a significant blow to the eye, you know, and he took a blow that knocked him down for the most part, you know, very light kick. But, yeah, so that is consistent with what he says about true confidence through the emphasis on sparring, and you won't know what a true martial art is and what it can offer you. So I'm going to discuss how when sparring, if these two entities are a single unit, you will be difficult to hit. If not, you can get nailed by a slow-moving truck, talking about the mind and the body. And then I will go to the conclusion. It says, as with anything worthwhile in life, martial arts takes time, dedication, discipline, a will to excel, and a willingness to accept and respect those more talented than you. So for many reasons, you know, their lack of honor, their lack of confidence to the point where they can be confident with themselves and keep their honor intact while admitting that I'm the best. For many reasons, these and more, you know, these people who are naysayers prove my point. And a lot of people have told me, yes, because they're aware and they're not accepting, they have silently conceded, and I couldn't agree more. So let's go to mind and body showing. When your mind and body are harmonized, you will be much calmer. You won't be nervous, and you won't suffer physically. If your mind and body can be fused as one, you'll be much happier because you'll be understanding, accepting. As with any phase of life, you'll suffer if your mind is one place and your body somewhere else. An instructor cannot just teach the physical or just teach the spiritual. There's no way you can accentuate body over mind. If you take away the brain, you are paralyzed. You no longer function. That means if you take out the brain and place it on the table, the brain itself will be useless. The brain and the body are one, and you try to harmonize the body and mind. Sometimes it can be very difficult, especially during martial arts training. There's so much concentration during forms practice, your mind and body must function together. When sparring, if these two entities are a single unit, you will be difficult to hit. If not, you can get nailed by a slow-moving truck. So we can ascertain from this that this guy who was an 8th degree black belt martial arts Hall of Famer at this point when the book was made agrees with me that sparring shows superior application and mental conditioning. Moving on. Don't get me wrong, as with most martial arts training, learning to harmonize the body and the mind takes time. It is especially difficult to teach children. Their minds and bodies are not working together. They're young and their attention span is limited. Most people who join a karate class in their early 20s, unfortunately, most people who join a karate class are in their early 20s, rather. Unfortunately, their minds have been set. It's very difficult to change their characters. The problems they had while growing up are still with them. They won't change in 2 months or 2 years, maybe 10 years. But if they If they're children, we can bring mind and body together in 2 years or less. Mind and body harmonization is most important in the execution of forms. If the master is trying to teach you a 68-step form and your mind and body are not together, you'll never memorize the steps. But if you're focusing, flowing, allowing your mind and body to become one, then sooner or later you're no longer thinking, just doing. You will do it automatically. Fighting. Gaining self-confidence is the most important aspect in our lives. However, many people go through life lacking confidence. You can achieve an academic-type confidence by graduating from college, or a skill-type confidence from learning a trade. But in the martial arts, physical confidence can only be gained by learning how to fight and knowing how to take care of yourself in a real situation. Many martial arts schools won't emphasize sparring. Some business people don't want to be hit hard in the face, while other instructors fear the possibility of lawsuits brought about by injury. Let's just explore this for a second. So he's saying sparring, not just full contact sparring, as I've demonstrated with the first part of this clip with the sparring gear. But, you know, when somebody does an air technique, for example, even if it's light contact, there's going to be a certain amount of force in it because you have to move quickly to accomplish the technique, or else you won't finish the technique. And therefore, if someone is hit, you know, they take a good one to their face. So even in light contact, you know, some instructors fear the possibility of lawsuits. Now, they say many martial arts schools won't emphasize sparring, but almost all of them do sparring. Anyway, but if you're not going to emphasize sparring, there's that word again, emphasize, you must teach them self-confidence and self-control. But how can you expect true confidence without an emphasis on sparring? You won't know what a true martial art is and what it can offer you. There you have it. I'm a Hall of Famer. At the time of this book, 8th degree, black belt, head of several organizations, martial arts organizations, saying, look, sparring is the essence of martial art application when training. Okay? And basically, he's talking about self-confidence as a transferable skill and reacting in a kind of, you know, almost fight-like situation in sparring. Fighting is imperative in the martial arts. Without fighting, you're not understanding total and complete martial arts, because until you get physically hit by someone, you won't know if something works. The instructor must bring his student along slowly so he can allow his confidence to grow. And his confidence can grow only by getting as close as possible to real physical training. If all you do is forms, touch hands, shadow boxing, and working out alone, and then you go into the ring and get hit, you'll be in trouble because you won't know how to react. And you see, he says nothing about light contact versus full contact. And this is key. Because a lot of people, they're nervous when they first spar. And usually when they first spar, it is light contact. They're nervous. They're not thinking effectively in that real-time situation. He uses the term when you get in the ring, right? Okay, he also talks about getting as close as possible to real physical training. So a lot of people will misperceive what he's saying there. He's not necessarily saying that you need to do full contact, but you have to do as close as possible. Now, what is that possibility limited by? Well, it's limited by honor. You know, can you do it and still be honorable? It's limited by legality. Okay, so there's, you know, brain conditioning and displaying skills and getting as close as you can without violating codes of honor and respect and tradition. So obviously you're not going to fight to the death. Now, if what you're trying to do is train somebody to be a UFC fighter, you're going to want to have them go in the ring and fight as if they're in a match with people, and then, you know, stop it. Just like with boxing. If you want to train someone to be a boxer, they're going to go in there with the sparring gear on, more often than not, and they're going to go at it full force because they're training for fighting in the ring. But if you want to train for actual combat and you're doing it in an honorable way, then you're going to want to limit it and light contact sparring. Moving on. Conclusion. In this day and age, it is rare to find an instructor who emphasizes philosophy as much as physical technique or training. So here you have the philosophy going back to the honor code and the accompanying moral code. For most instructors today, the most important thing is to find a good location and develop a business. There you go with the, UFC fighting and a lot of these martial arts. They're concerned with their businesses and their reputation as it relates to their business. Martial arts teachers have become businessmen. As such, the spiritual aspect may become lost in their drive for success. Now, what is morality and honor? These are things that relate to spirituality and religion. In the same vein, students are not as apt to request teaching in the philosophical side of martial arts. For the 2 or 3 hours they spend at the dojo, they may just want to exercise the body. It is virtually impossible in that small time period to explain the roots of the discipline. Most practitioners cannot be expected to desire the things their ancestors did in ancient Korea. This goes back to a video I made the other day where I said, look, your martial art is part of your culture, right? You want to do a martial art that is relevant to you. If you're African or an African descendant as I am, you want to do African martial arts. If you're Korean, you want to do taekwondo. Japanese, you want to do karate and ninjutsu and what have you. If you're Chinese, you want to do kung fu. If you're Filipino, you want to do FMA, because these things are your culture, your religion. But those few who want more from their martial art than self-defense techniques and a well-built frame, there should be instructors who are willing to provide the total foundation. Now, it cannot truly be a martial art without the philosophy. And therefore, the applied philosophy in, a martial arts competition means light contact sparring. Think about everything I said. It flows together. Okay? The philosophy, the honor, the morals. Okay? As close as possible. As possible meaning what? It is possible to fight to the fucking death. So what is limiting you? Legality and honor. So the most honorable martial arts competition is sparring. When you're consistent with the philosophy, which is common, that's why you see so many schools using sparring gear and doing light contact as opposed to full. The philosophies outlined in the preceding pages are merely a map to follow during your martial arts training. No one said it would always be easy. As with anything worthwhile in life, martial arts takes time, dedication, discipline, a will to excel, and a willingness to accept and respect those more talented than you. Now, going back, he said that, going back to what he said before, you won't know what a true martial art is and what it can offer you. He starts off by saying, how can you expect true confidence without an emphasis on sparring? So when he's talking about talent, the talent and how good you are at sparring are inextricably connected. There's no separating the two. It doesn't matter if you can break, 1,000 bricks with your ball sack, or do the splits, flying through the fucking air, which a lot of people can. It's kind of ballerina gymnastic stuff. Anyway, it goes back to what is martial arts, what is a true martial art? It goes back to your sparring, showing your transferable skills, okay? So when you look at this thing, you do your due diligence, you put it together, you see that he's agreeing with me. Most of all, the martial arts are a microcosm of life. They have philosophies that work well outside as when you're training. If you concentrate on the virtues of flexibility, fighting, and training, and allow them to spill over into your daily life, you will be happier and more successful in anything you do. And that goes back to my perception. These transferable skills also make me more perceptive and moral and a better person than all the opposition view and then all the people who want to be leaders of the black community who do not deserve it, and they are nowhere near as qualified as I am. I just want to go back a little bit to tell you. He talks about his philosophy. He talks, and it doesn't contradict this, obviously. He talks about flexibility, timing, I read already, discipline, ego, and training. Those are the things I didn't cover. You're going to have to buy the book for that. Thank you.